Salam. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to this Instagram live, which is called Finally Learning Arabic for Real. SubhanAllah, I know in my own Arabic journey, I've had my ups and downs. I've had times when I wasn't able to take classes, when having little children, I won't say got in the way, God bless them, but it made it really hard. And just so many difficulties, subhanAllah. And so I today I'm going to talk to a doctoral student a graduate. She is a PhD graduate and professor at Oxford University, whose specialty area is learning Arabic as a second language. So if this is something you've struggled with, you've worried about, you've thought about, we're heading towards the fall pretty soon, this conversation is something you want to listen to. You want to listen to Dr. Anna Maria Ramazanzadeh talk about her research, the program that she has been developing, and how her program is really going to help all of us learn Arabic. I mean, I've learned Arabic. I've been learning Arabic for so many years. And I see Aida saying it's too late. There is no too late about it. We can all learn. And subhanAllah, we just don't want that barrier between us and the Quran, us and the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we await the arrival of Anna Maria, I just wanted to tell you about how we had a hadith class here at the RCC in Minnesota. It's an ijaza class for the 40 hadith, and many people are native Arabic speakers, but most of them were not native Arabic speakers. And there's so much feedback. And subhanAllah, this morning I was on a walk next to the Mississippi River with one of the gals who was in the class, and she said, one of the things that really affected me was this idea that I am hearing it so differently in the Arabic language, even though Arabic isn't her first language at all. I mean, she's still struggling to learn, but still a few words here and there. And subhanAllah, not knowing Arabic can really separate us from the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Oh, look who has arrived. Dr. Anna Maria out of Oxford. Wa alaikum salam, rahmatullah. First, can I just tell you congratulations for all the incredible work that you have been doing. And I'm so grateful for you being here. And I want everyone to, subhanAllah, all around the world, people are thinking, what are the women doing? What are the women doing? And here is a young woman, Oxford University, devoting her days and much of her nights as well to the development of a program and programs that are based in research that helps all of us learn Arabic as a second language, become motivated to learn it, best ways of learning it, best practices. I really think, Dr. Anna Maria, that you are going to revolutionize the learning of Arabic. I think that we are going to look back on this day and this work that you're doing, and 10, 15 years from now, we're going to say, oh my goodness, do you remember how people used to learn Arabic? Oh, that was what did they do it like that for? Now we do it like this. And I hope they remember all the work you did to get that started. And if they don't, Allah will know, and you'll see it with you on the day of judgment. And if they're like, I don't know where this started, it's just so normal, like, who knows why we eat salad? Who started putting lettuce in a bowl and putting dressing on top?
I often wonder that.
So we don't know, right? But so maybe we won't know. We won't know it was all of this work that you've done, but at least it will permeate and make those cultural changes in people's lives to bring us as Muslims especially back to the love of the Arabic language, the ease of learning, the ease of using, the enjoyment of it, not this horrible barrier. Everyone's, it's a barrier, I can't do it. I hear that all the time from people.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hoping to interview you here and ask you some questions. Great. All right, so first of all, I did introduce you to everyone, Dr. Anna Maria Ramazanzadeh out of Oxford University. And I did say that a lot of your research was in Arabic and learning it as a second language, motivation around that. But could I hear a little bit from you, because that's so out there in the big picture? Can we hear a little bit from you about your specialty area in Arabic?
Sure. That's a big question, I guess. I suppose it might be helpful if I start where I started, which was I first learned it as a student, and as a sort of a Muslim kid, as you do.
So wait, sorry, but just for clarity. So of course I know this, but clarity for the audience. So do you come then from an Arabic speaking background?
I don't. Um, so I've learned it like many people do. In fact, the majority of Muslims do as a foreign or a second language, depending on where you are. So it was not spoken in my home. It was obviously the language of prayer and the language of the Quran, and you're exposed to it. But it wasn't spoken in my home. So I didn't have that the gift of being, in an Arabic speaking household. So that was my background. But I was always so keen to learn it, partly because I think I'm probably too ferociously independent, and I don't like being told what something says. I wanted to know that that's actually what something said when we're talking about the Quran here.
Well, I also, not to interrupt you, but let's just underline that for a minute, because I think maybe sometimes non-Arabic speakers feel shy to say that, feel shy to talk about those feelings of, gosh, what does that really say? And who's telling me what it says, and how am I experiencing that? So you said you're ferociously independent, but maybe you're just normal.
Maybe. Yeah, I suppose now there is a sort of growing trend towards towards an awareness of really how limited translations can be. And obviously translations are an incredible resource, but a sort of religious adherence to a translation can be very damaging.
Yes.
So I was frustrated from early on, frustrated and intrigued, because I knew that, words, even the few words that I knew, I would see them in different contexts and realize that that's not quite what it's saying. And so it was a bit of a puzzle. It was sort of like, trying to piece together things that were very disparate and not really knowing what was going on. So, our kitten's in the corner. That's what's making that noise.
I was trying to figure out, what is that noise? What is going on? I have a little audience here. I thought, did they turn on there? Go ahead.
She'll do her thing and then she'll just leave. But
well, just as long as I know what that is. But I wanted to say something about that experience. So I've also had that experience often. I remember in the early days, even one time I was creating a PowerPoint presentation, and I had a hadith I wanted to share with people, and I was feeling lazy. I didn't really want to, astaghfirullah, okay? But I didn't really want to sit down and do the translation. I said, this has got to be translated online somewhere. I'm just going to cut and paste. It's much easier. And I found it. And oh my God, Anna Maria, the first part of it was so mistranslated and so biased and so steeped in a particular way of thinking. And really it was an anti-woman way of thinking. And it was a rethinking and a reframing of that entire incident. And I remember that moment and just feeling, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I know what the hadith means because my Arabic at that point was good enough. Alhamdulillah. But what if I didn't? What if I didn't? And I was reading that hadith in English, and I would be affected in this negative way. So I think your work is just so important. And I appreciate it. And I see how maybe you yourself can sometimes we can't stand away from our work and see how important it is, but maybe because of your background, you're able to kind of stand away and say, yeah, I know how important this work is.
I certainly know. I mean, it's an incredible honor. And I guess I can't see, I guess I can sort of theoretically, I know what this could do. With this, I know, because I know what it did for me. And if you sort of multiply that, the impact of Muslim women in particular, but Muslims in general, really knowing Arabic, I think of it like, I love metaphors. So I think of it like not knowing how to drive. If you don't know how to drive, either someone else has got to take you somewhere or you're just not going. And if someone else takes you, you don't get to dictate how you travel. Is
So
that time going to
true.
be comfortable? You know, are you going to get snacks along the way? Probably not. Well, it depends how generous they are. Who knows? It's not your journey. It's
Yes.
you're not making it on your own. And
Oh,
yeah,
did everyone hear that? Just I get wait. I have to just let's just stop for a minute. That metaphor is so powerful. Did everyone hear that? What a metaphor. If we are not learning Arabic, we don't have a driver's license on our journey. We're literally forced to be in one car or another, and we don't even really get to choose the driver.
no,
It's whoever it is.
yeah.
La ilaha illallah. That is a powerful metaphor. Okay, so now tell us now. You got us all in this place, or we want to get. Wait a minute. I can't. I'm getting out of this car. Get me out
Right.
of this car right now. So I, of course, know because we've been working together that you've been very generous and been working night and day to develop and grow a brand new Arabic program for the Ribat Academic Institute. Now, in the world of Arabic and everybody is seeking Arabic, could you talk to me a little bit about what you've been doing here to make this Arabic program different and the kind of Arabic program that will help people get in the driver's seat?
Sure. So I guess there's so many components that I'm excited to talk about, so I may forget some, but one of the primary things that we are trying to integrate into our curriculum design, our program design, is this idea of engaging with students as thinking, reflecting, diverse, and emotional, for want of a better word, beings. There is an experience that goes on when you're learning a language. You're not just there are various language learning theories where essentially the student is a cup and something is poured into it, but that doesn't capture the fact that that cup is going through all sorts of things when they're
Oh my
trying to
God.
absorb information.
Yes.
So we really, and this comes partly from my own experience, partly from the experience of so many of the students and teachers that I talk to through my research, and also just through having read about how languages are learnt, that if we don't pay attention to that, students can feel like they're sort of reduced to just being a student, as opposed to someone who comes to the classroom with a background, with a present, and with expectations and hopes and dreams. So we really want to be engaged with that. We want to make sure that students feel seen, in as far as possible, and that we're communicating with students. And one of the primary ways, the sort of tangible ways we've tried to address the fact that students tend to have a trajectory when they're learning, with everything really, but with languages it's quite pronounced, because it's so different to learning another subject. There's a sort of mid-course program, year, term, however you're measuring it, dip. It happens.
Oh yes. I mean, I've seen that in my own life, right? That dip where you're like, do I want to study Arabic or do I want to eat popcorn?
It's
choosing the popcorn.
right. Or do I want to start another course?
Oh yeah.
Do I want to start another course? Or do I want to learn another language? Or shall I come back to it later? It's that low ebb where you're at breaking point, essentially.
And no one wants to talk about that either. Like, they're all embarrassed when we're at that space. We're all embarrassed about being there. And I think especially Arabic has baggage of, am I really a good Muslim if I'm having this low space?
I could talk for hours about that. The association of religiosity and faith with language skill is something that I find very problematic. Now to go back to our metaphor, it's an empowering tool.
Right.
But what happens often in sort of reverse is that people start feeling this sense of guilt and inadequacy in terms of their own religion when they struggle to learn a language. And you're just struggling to learn something. It's not an inherent problem with you. It's not a spiritual defect. It's something that we need to work together to find out how we can overcome what is a very, very natural phenomenon, and is not just exclusive to languages.
I got chills really when you said that. I just got chills because I think until we acknowledge these aspects of Arabic learning, we're not going to be able to get over a hill, because if you don't acknowledge the hill is there, you keep on banging into it and pretending like you're going forward, but banging into the hill doesn't help us go around or over it.
It doesn't at all. And there's a sense of real, and especially when it comes to online learning, this compounds it, a sense of real isolation that can happen with this experience. And we really want to be, honest about this. We want to be honest and transparent about the language learning process. So we want to really talk to our students about what does it even look like to learn a language? Because if you've never learned one before, or you've only learnt one, sort of, you've picked a language up by living in a certain country, or you've not sat in a classroom and done it, it's a very foreign, I guess is an word, concept. It doesn't work like learning science or history or even learning to drive a car necessarily. It's very different.
You know, the other thing is that, oh, sorry. Okay, may I just say that the one other thing that I hear you saying and I'm thinking about is how when you're learning a language, you judge yourself a lot about whether you're good at it or not. So I have a son who has, in my opinion, as a mother, has learned so many languages, Turkish and Hebrew and Japanese and Arabic and English. Arabic and English are more home languages, but nonetheless, he did put effort into learning at least Arabic. He took English at school like everybody else. And I think a little bit of Persian as well. When I say those things, and Russian, when I say those things in front of him, he says, Mom, I don't really know him. Yet I was in Turkey with him before he did the extensive learning, and he was talking to the shopkeepers. And I know that he can like read old Turkish poetry. So my point here is that it's Arabic, and with the baggage of, am I really a faithful person? Plus our judgment about ourselves of how good is my language really, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I'm grateful to you for taking all of that on.
It's really my honor and pleasure. But well, I've got two things that are related to that.
Yeah.
One is that they're going to be very big questions, but let me start with this. Often people talk about, well, children learning languages, they seem to pick it up really easy. It's something you should do naturally. But as adults, we already have language skills. I can communicate with you like this. If I'm learning a language, I can't. And that is can be, if you find yourself in a situation when you can't communicate, that can be a huge sort of blow to your confidence. Because I'm an intelligent, articulate person in my own language, and suddenly I'm mute. And if you look at the trajectory of language learning, even in children, you have the terrible twos, for example. There are theories that the reason that they're so terrible is that they don't have the language skills to match what they want to communicate. So they have.
As a mother, I'm going to say that's what the deal is right there. That's what the deal is. Because the second they can tell you that they're upset, they start to calm down.
Right, exactly. And so what are we doing as adults? We are, like you said, judging ourselves for not being able to communicate and really having an emotional experience in that moment where I want to say something and I can't. And that can be really, really frustrating. The other thing that we really need to talk about, and you know, all of this is evolving as we develop our course, and we want to evolve it with our students too, is what does it mean to have learnt a language? I mean, you son, for example, and he has a
very British way of saying that, by the way. Just want to throw that in there. So what language? You know, what did you say? How do we?
What does it mean to have learned a language?
Learned a language. With the T.
With the T, yeah.
Okay, go on. Keep going. Yes.
So you describe your son, for example, who clearly has language skills, but his perception of having learnt a language is different to what you are perhaps measuring.
Yes,
so we need to quantify, perhaps that's not quite the right word, but at least identify what is it that I'm here to learn, and have I learned it? Because to say I want to learn a language, I mean, well, do you know English? Have you learned English?
Right. Oh, yes.
Have I learned English? I don't know. I don't know every word. I don't understand, you know, the nuances of certain dialects. Does that mean I haven't learned the language? I mean,
if you hand me a paper about string theory, I can read it if it was written for 7th graders.
Right. But I'm not competent in reading certain things. So does that mean I don't know the we need to specify what it is we're here to learn. And so that's one of the things that we've again integrated into the program is what are you getting out of each module? Sort of measurable markers where I can say, okay, now I know that. Now I can not just know that, because it's not just about acquiring grammar knowledge, because that's something that a lot of courses fall into the trap of. Is just, well, I know how to conjugate a verb, which is really important, but do I know how to use it? Do I know how to recognize it? So which we're integrating this idea of can-do statements, which comes from a European framework. We're also integrating it into a broader international framework, where you, by the end of each module, you should be able to look at the list of can-do statements that module was designed to help you achieve, and say, yeah, I can now read Arabic without harakat and recognize some words. I can now form a sentence correctly, grammatically and in terms of the vocabulary, that expresses my hopes and aspirations, for example.
You know, Anna Maria, sorry, but it's something occurs to me as you're speaking about this idea of the student saying, I can do this, that in adult education, I feel like that's intuitively, I guess, I feel like that's really important, rather than waiting for what the teacher says I can do. Because even if the teacher gives me a good grade, if I'm not feeling confident as an adult, I'm continuing to judge my level of language, even if the teacher has said said that I've done well. So that sounds like that's really critical, I would imagine, that to include as part of the program self-evaluation that is broader than just like a quiz.
Oh yeah, exactly. And to take that idea slightly further, the other important thing, because again, a problem with some courses, I'm not here to bash other courses, but I mean courses that I've taken and experienced in the past, getting a grade doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Sorry, I was trying to, there's going to be, I was afraid of the noise, so I was letting someone know I was doing a live. So sorry, please go ahead.
This is fine. I was just saying that, so this idea that when you're in a classroom, any classroom, doesn't have to be language, getting a grade doesn't necessarily mean anything to you. It might make you feel good if you got an A, but what does that mean? What does that A mean? What can I do now? Okay, I've got a certificate, but if I don't feel like I can perform outside of the classroom in a context that's meaningful to me, then I can waive my certificate, but that's about it. So another way we've tried to sort of address that issue is through the assessments, the end of module assessments. So we do live in in a society where we do want tangible results at the end. We do want to say, okay, I am this. We as humans like that. We like labels, as problematic as they may be. But we want to be able to say, well, okay, I am now novice mid. What we're going to do is say what that means in terms of I can now do X, Y, Z. But
wait a minute. You're using words now that sometimes people might not understand. So I just want to, excuse me. So I've learned from you that there are words used across university settings that indicate, so that like if I'm at University of Michigan and someone else is at the University of Toronto, that we can have conversations and understand where each other is in language progression using these words. So when you say novice, what do you mean? Like talk just a little bit about that. Make your point, but just so people understand that these are not words you're making up. These are words used across the field.
Right. So I don't know the system in high schools in America, but or even think of a GPA, right? That's a standardized system. If you tell someone I've got a 3.7 GPA, I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's a number. Someone in America would know what that means. They would know based on your subject what that means you can do, what kind of strengths you have. The same here. We have first class and second and all the rest of it. So it's a standardized system. So in languages, when for children and adults, actually, there is a framework, an international framework that is recognized, that's called ACTFL. It's the American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages, I believe. They have a system that goes from novice to intermediate to advanced, and there's a couple of other levels that are sort of super high. And each of them has detailed descriptors. So we are using those descriptors, and universities, other courses that, you know, are really getting to grips with the fact that this is a standardized system, will benchmark, will sort of use that as a yardstick and say, okay, our first year of university degree program will get you to novice high. So we are basing our course on those levels, so that if you decide at any point that you will now want to go and pursue Arabic at university, you can go to university, say, I have completed these courses and I am now at intermediate mid 1. And they'll know what that means. And you'll
That's
know what
so
that means.
powerful. I love that. I feel like one issue with Muslims, and especially maybe Muslim women, well, I think maybe all Muslims, but my experiences with Muslim women is that we feel like we're learning over here, then we're learning over there, we're learning over here. We don't quite know, like, what have I learned? Where am I? Do I really know anything? So in this way, then they can hang that on a tree somewhere and say, yes, I know this, or I'm at this level.
Exactly. And you can take, it's transferable. You can take it. It doesn't, you know, if I say, well, I've completed level 1 in X program, that someone else that you go and tell that to doesn't know what they mean. But with this system, it's very obvious. So that's one thing that we've based our new program on, that ACTFL, if you want to go and look it up, that system. We're also doing 2 other things. One is that we are concentrating our program on specific skills. Because like we said, what does it mean to learn a language? We need to be clear about what we're delivering. Because if I tell you, come to Rabat now, I'll teach you Arabic. That's huge. I mean, that doesn't necessarily, that means a million things. So we're being very specific that our program is designed to focus on equipping women with the skills to access sacred texts independently. That's what we want to deliver. Now, in the future, inshallah, one day we'll be able to do Arabic, all of it. But that requires, you know, each one of these components, because you've got reading, you've got writing, you've got speaking, you've got listening, you've got dialects, you've got poetry, you've got grammar, you've got, you know, we can go on and on and on. And Arabic has a rich tradition of sort of components of the language. They really knew that, okay, you need to learn this, and you need to learn this, and you need to learn this, as opposed to just, here's a course, learn Arabic. Now, having said that, we are focusing on reading, but we're also aware that you can't learn reading in isolation. So we're not saying that you're not going to speak in class. You need to speak in the class. You need to be able to hear Arabic. You can be exposed to it. You need to be able to write. All of these skills are complementary. But we need to be clear and honest, we're being honest, about our focus. This is our focus. It's in line with the goals of the Rabata Institute. We have a vision of increasing this Arabic program, but that's what we want to deliver. And in order to allow students to monitor how far they've got with that, assessments are not just in the form of exams.
Before you jump into exams, I just want to, I want to go back to something. It's because this idea of reading, of being able to assess myself without the ugliness that assessment comes, that can come with that. I feel like that this is that exact space, because when you're telling me, if I'm the student, that you are going to be here and this is what you're focusing on. And what I really hear here as well is the skills of language are being used to reach the goal of independent access in reading. And I see someone in the chat saying, oh, what in the world, reading sacred text independently? This is so exciting. And really it is so exciting. So I just wanted to underline that a little bit, because I think that it is something hard for us to imagine. And I also love what you said about how language is a vast thing. And when we try to, like, if you try to eat an entire Thanksgiving meal over here in the United States, that's a lot of food, and in one sitting all by yourself, you're not going to accomplish it. You're going to get up. You would have been full. In fact, you might be sick. You've eaten so much. But still, if you look at the table, it might be full of food. I think that's what happens with language. Like we are full, we take it on a lot, but we look and we say, but I've done nothing. And in this way, you're flipping that script. So we can say, this is what I want to eat. Yep. And I've eaten it. Now what am I eating next, as the metaphor of learning, I mean. Exactly. I love it. Yeah, go ahead and then tell us about your assessment things. Yeah.
So no, that's exactly it. It's like, it's staged learning. So it's a process. Language learning is a process. It doesn't happen the same as other subjects, and we can talk about that for a long time. But to chunk it, almost take it in chunks, and at the end of each chunk, look back and say, I can now do X, Y, Z. I know where I am on the map, and I know my final destination, and I know the next step too. So it's about those, it is essentially, if you see each module like a step towards a specified goal that we've been very clear about and very honest about. So that's really the way that we've structured this program. In terms of assessment, because this is...
I just want to let everyone here who knows, excuse me, sorry, everyone here who's with us today, that we are talking about the Ribat Academic Institute's brand new Arabic program that will be starting in the fall. We've been working for a little over a year really hard on this, and previous to that we've had lots of discussions, but this has been a process of a lot of hard work, a lot of care and love and intention for changing the culture of Arabic, of giving access to women to heritage texts, all of these things that are so important. And again, that's what we're talking about here. The classes will be available starting in September, and registration will open in the middle of August, I think August 15th. And there is a super fancy placement test. Yeah. So that I'm so excited about too. But so that is what we're talking about here today. And our guest is Dr. Anne-Marie Ramazanzadeh, who is a graduate of, and she also is an instructor at Oxford University. And so proud of you for that too. I mean, that's the best university in the world, I believe, is its rating, its grade. So we're honored that you are devoting all of this time and energy to this work. And we're so excited to have you here and listening to you about Arabic. Okay, I just wanted to catch up the room because we have been here for half an hour. We have some new people, so to let them know where we are. So please go ahead now and continue.
So to go back to assessments, because this ties in actually, and you mentioned that I did research at university on this. This is my doctoral research, and I looked at motivation, and one of the sort of themes that emerged was that students were very, very disenfranchised and that they couldn't really put their finger on what they'd learnt. So we're trying to tackle this throughout the program, but at the end of each module, we've tried to make sure that students who are, let's put it like this, I don't like exams. They're problematic. However, they do have some benefit, because there are certain things that in language learning you need to know. It's very hard to function in a language if you're learning it as a second language. And especially if you want to use it to be able to access sacred texts, that if you don't know, you're going to struggle. So we want to make sure that students know that. It's not about, do you know this? No, you can't pass. It's about, okay, are you feeling confident so that you can move on to the next level? Because if you feel confident and you see that confidence, that gives you a boost for module 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever comes next. But not everyone functions well in an exam. There are some students who are not test takers. Plus, exams don't necessarily measure how well you can apply the knowledge you've learned. And we want students to see that they can apply their knowledge. They're not straight away. It's not something that you put in your back pocket for later, because language falls straight out of the hole in your pocket if you just leave it there for later. I've experienced that myself. So
that is awesome. Language falls straight out of the pocket if you leave it there for later. The hole in the pocket. I guess you develop a hole, right? If you
it's a painful realization, but we've all got it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have to, I don't know, we need that on a flyer. Language flies straight out of the hole in your pocket if you leave it there for later. That is so awesome. Yes, it does. Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, even for me, I've been back in the United States now for 10 years, actually. This summer, subhanAllah, I can't believe it. And my Arabic was so much better. And so frustrating. I'm talking about my whatever I'm doing and reading and this and that. So yeah, I'm 100% with you on that.
It cut out a little bit there. Sorry. I think.
Oh dear. I'm so sorry. I hope that wasn't. I wonder if that was me or you. I don't know. Anyway, it's just so So
So
this
long as I'm here.
program, okay, you're here. Okay, so this program then is for the Ribat Academic Institute. It starts in the fall. It is focused on women. It is focused on helping women be motivated, focusing on the student and being honest about that, helping people reach the place where they are growing in language instead of worrying about a test, but the test itself is another educational tool in the world of learning. And so now, for the students who are thinking about signing up and they want to come on to the program, you did say earlier, you said it's just in passing, especially you're talking about online learning. And here at Ribat, we've been doing online learning since way before COVID, which I feel like I have to be excited about here, because now the whole world is like, I mean, well, my daughter is one of them, but people who during COVID, they found out, oh gosh, it's so easy to just pop onto my class from Zoom if I'm otherwise engaged in research. Oh, I can just come on over here and do this. Whereas when we've got to actually get up and go, it's a little bit more time consuming. I think for women, one thing that's really important is that women go through so many different seasons of life. And sometimes in those seasons, their time is limited. Like they've got maybe little children, or maybe they have elder parents they're caring for, or maybe they are in the beginning of a very big profession and they just can't take time off of work. So all of those different things, I am still really excited about online learning, even though the whole world is doing it now, because it opens up opportunities for women globally and locally and within the individual schedule. But how does that look like? How did you think about that when you were planning and thinking about this program?
I'm so glad you asked about this.
And do mention about like how many hours we need, because that's the thing, you blew my mind with that when we were talking about this months ago.
Yeah. So I'm really glad you mentioned this, because it is an integral part of the program, both the online learning element, but also this idea of languages being learned differently and what that looks like practically. So in terms of flexibility, we've at Ribat, there's always been this awareness of other people's schedules and the need to be flexible, so that we're not excluding people with certain lifestyles. So that's really, really important. So we have a combination of synchronous and asynchronous, so teacher there and teacher not there sessions, which can either be joined live in the case of the teacher student interaction, or can be watched as recordings. So there should be no barrier in terms of time zones, in terms of, if you're the kind of person that gets up at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning and that's your time to do your thing before everyone else takes over your day, then that's doable.
I feel like that might be your thing. Is that like, that sounded like it was the way you said that. I feel like maybe that's your thing. That's
possibly. Possibly, yeah. Like you said, seasons of life, it's either 3 or 12 or
yeah, changes.
But the thing about language learning, again, to go back to this idea that it's not like other subjects, it requires continuity. It requires the slow and steady chipping. You can't learn a language like you described, like eating that Thanksgiving dinner. You've got to have a plan of attack, and it's going to take time. If you gorge on it, it's going to end in disaster. Usually it's overwhelming, it's frustrating. Languages are learned incrementally, and they need to be learned little and often. One of the main problems with a lot of courses, especially people who are not learning full-time. If you're at university, it's different. It's a slightly different setup, because that's what you're dedicated to. That is essentially like your focus. But when you're learning at sort of extracurricularly, if you like, classes tend to be, it's once a week or it's twice a week. And what tends to happen, and I know this from experience, is that you go to the class and you are really pumped up and it's really exciting, and then you think, okay, I've got this assignment to do, I'll go home, and life happens. 15 minutes before the next class, you're cramming, and everything's fallen through the gaps.
Yes.
And you end up never making progress. You may pick up words here, you may pick up phrases there, but that's not the way to build your language skill. It doesn't work like that.
That's not the way to get out of the rut.
No,
That
it
place,
doesn't work.
that place that everyone is in of feeling embarrassed or feeling shame or feeling, when am I going to get better at this? Am I just not able? Maybe I'll just give up. I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But that's, yes, and that's where, that is exactly right. Like that, we're going to stay there as long as we stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that so what happens on top of that is that you're told, okay, so you have 1 hour a week and then you need to work at home.
Yes.
And you're like, yes,
right.
I'll work at home tomorrow.
Yeah.
Next
no,
week.
maybe I just have to do this thing now.
Yeah,
or
right.
yes,
But
absolutely.
that's how life happens. You know, what can we do? Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can tell you when to work and what to do.
Yes, that's what we all need. You know what, Anna Maria, Dr. Anna Maria, I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts on a number of different topics, and people are talking a lot about decision fatigue. And part of the difficulty of coming back to do that work that the teacher told you to do is we all have decision fatigue. Like, when am I going to use what I have this hour in front of me? Is it enough even? Maybe I need more. I don't know if I can do it. Maybe I need, and so people end up binging on Netflix and then feeling bad about that because they just had decision fatigue. So in this way that you're talking about, we're helping people not have decision fatigue. This is part of the class. You're going to do this thing, do this stuff, and at the end, you're going to know it.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yes.
It's unfair for teachers, program designers to expect students to know what to do outside of the classroom and to expect them just to find the time without telling you how much time. Now, if you go down to the theory level, a lot of time is needed to make progress in language learning. So we have taken that into account. If you really do want to make progress, it does require a lifestyle. Now, that's not to say you've got to change, your whole routine or anything like that, but there's a new sort of approach that you need to see yourself as a language learner. This is now part of my identity.
Nice. I like it. I'm a person who learns languages. I am learning Arabic. I am a learner of Arabic. Every time I'm learning something, I'm learning more. I love it. I love it.
So add that to your list of, professional, mum, sister, aunt, gardener, cook, whatever it might be.
Language learner. That's what I do.
Yeah, it's what I do. It's part of my life. It's part of my identity. And so what does a week look like then? What does a module look like? So if we get down to the facts, modules are 6 weeks long. That's short for a course. These are not intensives. They're not intensive. We are not going to swamp you with information in those 6 weeks, but we're going to make sure that what you're learning in those 6 weeks, you've learned well. That's what we want.
I just want to say about those 6 weeks, it's just so smart, because when a course is too long, life happens. And then that shame thunder comes through again. Why did I did it? Why couldn't I finish it? Why? But a 6 week bite, you can take that bite. Like, you can just say, I can do this for 6 weeks, and then I'm going to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that, what is it? 15 seconds of bravery or something. Like, I don't have to be brave the whole time I've got to do this situation. I just need 15 seconds of it. And then I just 6 weeks of learning, and then I'm in it. And I'm enjoying it. I feel like
absolutely.
So we've got 6 weeks. And that means that if life happens in between, you haven't, sacrificed a huge amount of your course, and, there's not the guilt, the shame thunder. Oh my God, what a visual, but like that's not such a component now. That's not such an obstacle. Yeah. So they're bite size, I guess maybe that's not quite the right word, but they're manageable portions, easy steps to building up your career as an Arabic user, someone who knows Arabic. So 6 week courses. Now, each week we are asking of you to learn something every day, to participate in the learning process every day. And we realize that might sound daunting, but it's pretty much the only way it works. 5 days.
I mean, you have to brush your teeth every day, right? So it's not like I know what you're doing. You're not asking anybody to make a Thanksgiving dinner every day or eat a Thanksgiving dinner every day. Like have a little mashed potato, put a little gravy on it. Tomorrow you can have a little bit of sweet potatoes, a little bit of coleslaw, a little turkey every day.
Yeah. And then it becomes enjoyable, and you develop a routine. So we have 2 classes a week that are with the teacher, where you will, and we are employing this idea as far as possible of a flipped classroom. So when you're with the teacher, you're using your skills. So
awesome.
You're talking, and you're not just sitting there listening to a lecture, because you can do that by yourself. You know, you can read it, you can go and listen to a video. Right. So we want you to be getting the maximum potential out of the teacher. Now, obviously, there's some variation in that. Some topics are easier to discuss with the teacher, all the rest of it. But that's the idea. Outside of the classroom, you are establishing the building blocks that you need to take you from lesson to lesson and to build up towards those skills that we're aiming to deliver for you by the end of each module. So we're asking for a small amount of time, up to an hour outside of the classroom, when on the 3 days, the weekdays, that you're not in the classroom with the teacher. And there are specific tasks that are already laid out for you.
Yes, that's what we need.
Yeah. We're getting rid of the decision fatigue. There's no decision here. You got to do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So they're short, you submit them, and the part of the grade that or part of the way that you progress through the course is that you need to submit those assignments. You need to do that work, not because we want to test you, but because these are the building blocks that you need to go forward. We don't want things to fall through the gaps, because you suffer, your classmates suffer, the teacher goes crazy, and no one makes any progress.
I like what you said about the classmates suffer, because as a language learner, a self-identified language learner, it is frustrating for the student that has done the work to be in class and feel like, gosh, nobody else is here, and then the teacher has to go back and review. And that's not judging or shame to the one that wasn't able to do it, but if there wasn't clarity, if they didn't know what to do, you know, I did see, just changing the topic a tiny bit, because I saw some questions come through about, is this good for me if I want to memorize Quran? Is something that is going to be working for, and subhanallah, like that is what this is for. This is for you, the Muslim who is struggling with Arabic. Memorizing Quran and Arabic go hand in hand. If you're just a reader of the Quran, you got to understand it. Reader of hadith, reader of heritage books, reader of fiqh books, reader of things in Arabic that we want to read for ourselves. And going back to the beginning, when Dr. Anna Maria was talking about becoming an independent learner and the importance of that. SubhanAllah. Well, we've talked a lot today. I think I would like you to just, if you were going to sum up in one sentence, I mean, we have some doozy sentences from you about the pocket and the hole in the pocket and all this, lots of them. But if you're going to summarize the reason this particular program you've been working on is important, what would you say?
I would say that this program approaches learners as a diverse set of students with vast experiences. We're approaching it as a goal-oriented program. We're very clear and honest with you about where we want to take you. Come along if that's where you want to go. We want to take the extra work of the decision making. We want to take the uncertainty, and we want to take the patchwork nature of Arabic learning that ends up being an obstacle to progress. We want to take that out of the equation. We want to lay it out for you and help you to achieve measurable goals.
Oh, let's put that on a t-shirt. It's a little bit long for a t-shirt, but I feel like it belongs on one. That's so awesome. All right, well, thank you for taking the time to join me here today. And for everyone who joined us live, thanks for being here. For those of you who will be watching the video itself, and for those of you who are live, ribat.rabata.org is the institution we're talking about. And you will be able to register for an Arabic class August 15th. Also, there were some questions about, well, how do I know which level? How do I know, am I novice or beginner or intermediate? Well, we have taken care of that for you as well with a super awesome, super cool placement test. And I believe when they finish the test, they'll know right away.
Yep.
Correct?
No,
you'll know right away. So awesome. You're not waiting for anybody to get back to you. Will they email me? When are they going to email me? What happened? you just know right away. So it's awesome. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, Maria, you and your team, everybody on the team, inshallah.
We
And
really have an amazing team.
yeah, alhamdulillah. Wallahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help in this has been very clear to me. There's real blessing here. And I really hope, I mean it when I say, I feel like 10 years from now, people are going to look back and say, I'm so glad we don't learn Arabic like we used to.
Allah,
Now
I mean,
we've learned how to do it.
that
Inshallah, inshallah, ya Rab, inshallah. Allah yaftah alayki wa alayna. And thank you everyone for being here today, and stick with us. We'll have more to say in the upcoming days, inshallah.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.